been to the Continental Divide that's in Colorado? All precipitation landing on the eastern side of the ridge flows east into the Atlantic Ocean. And all the precipitation that is falling on the western side of the ridge flows west, and eventually it reaches the Pacific. Although it's hard to believe, the difference, a fraction of an inch at the point of origin, will eventually result in the difference of an entire ocean. Although we may not realize it, every moment of our lives we are balanced on our own continental divide. Each second of our lives, we walk along a ridge, a knife edge that divides it into two entirely different potential dimensions. Because that is how the law of cause and effect works. The difference in one step, perfect music. The difference in one step, one choice, one word, one thought from the point of origin can make a literal difference in our lives. On one side of the world is the world of the ordinary, the mundane, the uncertainty. And on the other side, stretching away from all of that, is living in the majesty, like the world of self-empowerment, the world of self-creation, the dimension of the miraculous, where dreams unfold with perfect harmony and precision. On this side lies heaven. We are always at choice. We get to choose at the point of origin of the thought. Each moment as we walk this ridge, that is our lives, we make that choice, whether we are aware of it or not, and most people are not aware of it, creating through default. Each moment we choose to pour the water of our thoughts down one side or the other. It is our free will to do that. And said a bit differently, Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, once wrote, "Our world offers us the opportunity to cooperate with it on a spiritual basis, or to argue with it on a material basis. If we do the first, we have an abundant life with great peace. If we resist," he writes, "we argue with circumstances, we find troubles heap themselves upon us in even greater measure." I don't know about you, but I would prefer to live in the dimension of the miraculous. And we've been talking about miracles, and that will continue for this month, which actually today is the end of it, because a whole bunch of our ministers are being ordained in Kansas City, so we won't be here. But a lot of other people will be here. Other people will be here, so we're still doing Sunday service. Of course, we don't postpone. But it will go into October, because it's such a great concept of living in the world of what we call miraculous. In God's mind, it's the natural formation of creation. But for us, it feels like a miracle, and I love that feeling, that word. So we are looking at a profound spiritual teaching here. Really a roadmap for living in the dimension of the miraculous, for living an abundant life with great peace. This roadmap was embedded in Jesus, the master teacher. In the story, the miracle of the loaves and fishes. In a terrific book that I'm basing most of these talks on, entitled 12 Conditions of a miracle written by Todd Michael, it is suggested that in the miracle of the loaves and fish, which has always been viewed by biblical scholars as having a particular meaning, Jesus taught us 13 conditions or states of consciousness that when operating at the same time, the miraculous occurs. And Todd Michael, at the same time, has written this book that he translated from Greek into English. So he got the true meaning and the true and rich meaning of these words. Once brought into operation at the same time, these conditions form a kind of engine with 12 cylinders. When all 12 cylinders are operating at the same time, that's the power that they create is beyond comprehension. 2 weeks ago, we looked at the first two conditions of a miracle. Emptiness, which we create a vacuum when we go into meditation, or open and receptive to all the divine information and good that will flow to us when we are open and make time for it. And alignment with divine love by being moved with great compassion. Great compassion. That's what love does. It creates great compassion. So today we're going to look at conditions 3 and 4. So condition 3 is asking. At Matthew 14:15 we read, "When it was evening, his disciples came to him and said, 'This is a lonely place, and it's getting late. Dismiss the people so that the men may go to the villages and buy food for themselves.'" So clearly, Jesus' disciples knew that the people were getting restless, so to speak. They were hungry and needed food. And the disciples, not having any food of their own, relayed this information to their leader, Jesus. In other words, information about what was needed was put into words and effectively communicated. And if you want your needs fulfilled, we must speak them and make them known. You have to ask in order to receive. Ask and you shall receive. We hear this all the time. Formulating effective and appropriate ask, the big ask, a lot of people feel weird about asking for stuff. Well, a lot of the times you won't get anything if you don't ask. You must ask. But that appropriate ask establishes the third condition of your miracle. Holmes and Science of Mind book refers to Matthew 7:7, which read, "Ask, and it shall be given unto you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be open for you. Whoever asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door is open." We now come to the definitive teaching. Now this is what Ernest Holmes wrote about that passage in the Bible. We now come to a definitive teaching regarding prayer. We shall receive that for which we ask. It shall be open to us when we knock, and we shall find that for which we are searching. This teaching implies, this is Holmes, the definitiveness of spiritual and mental work. God is intelligent mind and spirit, and there is a direct response from this universal intelligence to our intelligence. The mind of God is one mind. It's God's mind. It's my mind now. We use that infinite mind. That's not Holmes, that's me. But anyway, it comes from studying on the songs. And he continues, if we ask for bread, we shall not receive a stone. But we are told that we must ask believing, key word, if we are to receive. We must believe it. Here again, we are meeting the law of cause and effect in the teachings of Jesus, he says. Jesus points to the fact that if we, being human and consequently limited, know how to give good gifts to our children, how much more will God give good gifts to those who ask? And he explicitly tells us to ask for exactly what we want. Of course, we don't ask in New Thought. This is what this is, New Thought spirituality. We don't ask, we accept. We actually declare. We demand. Because this is not about beseeching some God that's separate from us. But in this context here, we'll use the word ask, and it simply means to make your desire, your intention known. The most important concept to keep in mind while formulating a request is this. It is not the thing, it is the feeling that you are asking for. And many people don't get this humongous difference. What is it I want to feel from this manifestation in my life? What is it I want to feel? I'm going to use a house as an example. And it works like this. If you think that what you want is a house, you need to carefully look beneath the desire and make absolutely certain that you know how you want to feel when you do manifest that house. You got to know the feelings behind it, and that goes in many different areas. But for this talk, we're going to use the house as the example. If you desire to own a home, for example, and you are really looking for the experience of living in this house, and you want that whole feeling of security, of beauty, of love, of feeling just so that you belong there, those are what will allow you, those feelings are what will allow you to deeply go within and manifest. You manifest those desires, you manifest the house that goes along with it. When you formulate your demand, make sure you connect with the essence. If you focus only on getting a house and not the spirit, we hear the spirit of the law a lot lately. Well, the spirit of the law is really important. So it's the spirit here. It's the spirit that the house will confer. You are putting the cart before the horse if you don't focus on what that desire really means to you. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if this doesn't give you what you want and you just don't feel fulfilled. You don't feel any great accomplishment from, okay, you manifested the house and it still doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel anything. If you have ever asked for a very specific thing only to find you got it and that fulfillment is not there, then you know what I'm talking about. We've manifested things, we all have. We've manifested things in our lives, gotten what we desire, and there was no great joy after we got it. It was like, okay, now what? If you ask for a very specific house, you might get it only to find that you feel frustrated, confused, angry. You might get the neighbors from hell next to you, so make sure. I did when I manifested my house, which was a miracle, by the way. We'll talk about that. But I wanted wonderful neighbors, quiet preferably, wonderful neighbors around me, and live in a beautiful neighborhood where I don't have to know everyone, but just where I could feel connected. Conversely, if you start asking for the feeling of security and pleasure that form the essence of your desire, the universe will supply you with a house that will provide all of your desires. That's the way the law of cause and effect works. So the law of attraction is the way it works. In How to Use Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes writes, all statements in treatment, which is affirmative prayer, must be felt with a feeling beyond words, beyond statements, and beyond phrases. Remember, it is our job. It is our job to know the what, and it's God's job to know the how. We don't have to know the specifics, because it's very limited when we know the specifics. But we have to have a clear intention of the what. Continuing with the example of the house, imagine that you are designing a custom-built house. Now you're designing the whole thing on your own. Initially, you're very pleased, and you get to decide every detail. However, early on in the process, you realize that you really don't know what you really want, or what you're even doing. You don't know how to choose every doorknob, every light switch, the fixtures, the molding, in order to create a house that will make you happy. In truth, you know virtually nothing about the specifics, and see that your uneducated decisions may well result in a mess. Your initial excitement evaporates, and you feel depressed and confused. Now imagine you're on the other side of the Great Divide. Now imagine that you go about things a little differently this time. You wisely formulate your request as follows. I see a home which will bring great peace of mind and satisfaction. And instead of trying to do this yourself, you desire the atmosphere and the general feeling of your dream house to the most, you decide to give it to the most experienced master designer you can find. This time, the designer handles all the details, relying on his wisdom and experience. The house that results is extraordinarily beautiful and surpasses even your expectations. And you end up feeling immense gratitude and relief. Understand that the universe, God, is the master designer. Just think about that. God is the master designer. Trust that you will be provided for in all your true needs will be provided for perfectly without your help. We get in our own way sometimes because we think we know it. Our job, remember, is to know the what. Leave the details to the great master designer. And you will end up with an experience that is so fulfilling each and every time. It's the way it works. I've done it. I've tried it. A lot of you have done it and tried it, and it's like, wow, I could never have planned such a thing in my whole life. One more important element to the condition of asking, along with knowing what you really want, it's important to understand what your spirit really needs, what that within you, what it really needs. When stating your request, you must understand and honor the concept of integral need. Integral need, a term used by Todd Michael. Now look again at the miracle of the fishes and loaves, or the loaves and the fishes. The people, this is good, the people in the crowd experienced the miraculous manifestation of food, but they were not present at the site of the miracle with the intention of being fed, nor not just physically fed. That's not why they were there, right? They were there because they were seeking spiritual feeding. They came to hear the great master talk and give them his teachings. So during the natural course of their search, they became physically hungry. In other words, their physical hunger was an integral part of a far more important purpose. It's not why they were there to eat. They were there to hear Jesus, to be spiritually fed. Now think for a moment, and your personal goal, your desire. 2 weeks ago, because we had a guest speaker last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about making this personal and having your own desire and goal that you really wanted to manifest during these 4 different or 5 different, I don't even know how long they're going to be, but they're going to be a lot of them, on being a miracle worker. So think about what you desire. Does it fit into the picture of evolution of your soul? Does it serve the greater good of humanity? What are the feelings that you really desire to experience by creating? And now we look at condition number 4. That was a little twist on the story of the loaves and fishes. And it's really true. Are we being spiritually nourished? Are we being spiritually fed by what we desire? When I desired a new home, I wanted it to be something that would feed my soul. Feed was in a vulnerable time in my life, and I wanted to feel that security, that beauty, that just all of these wonderful feelings that would nourish my spirit. The next section of the lesson on creating miracles shows us this is maximizing. What does that mean? Maximizing. It shows us that Jesus did not change the loaves and fish out of thin air. They did not appear from nothingness. Rather, the food which fed the crowd was an expansion of an existing supply. It was already there. At verse 1 and at verse 17 and 18, we read, the disciples said, "We have nothing here except 5 loaves and 2 fish." Jesus said to them, "Bring them here to me." Now imagine for a moment, you're in front of 5,000 really hungry people. Imagine that you asked everyone in the crowd to hand you over what food that they might have brought with them. And you're presented with 5 loaves and 2 fish and 5,000 people. What would you be thinking at that point? My guess is you would be pretty discouraged. What would you be thinking? The situation comes up in our lives all of the time, so it should be nothing new for us. We have a need and a desire, and we look at that which we have, but we already have in our lives. And how many times have we looked at that in a state of frustration and despair because it simply wasn't enough? It just wasn't enough to do what it is that we wanted to do. A miracle worker perceives things differently. A miracle worker always sees the supply that exists as a perfect beginning. The miracle worker also uses the supply at hand to the very maximum. If we learn to work with what we have, more will be added unto us. This is one of the great laws of the universe. So when I went to buy, I looked at one house. So I'm looking for a house, right? I'm not going to buy a house. But I buy the first house I see online. I'd see it. I go look at it 10 years ago. And I'm not a real numbers kind of person, but I do have a little common sense. But I didn't care. Because what I saw that an accountant or a business person would sit down and say, you can't afford that house. And there's no way you're going to get a mortgage on that house. You don't have enough money. You don't have this, you don't have that. But I couldn't even think about that. I focused on being in that house. That was my house. I walked through it and I claimed that house. I didn't want to hear anything from anyone. That house. It took a little while, but I was approved. And I kept saying, this is a miracle. Because it was a miracle. I looked beyond the conditions at that time of what seemed black and white. Of there's no way, honey. Oh, yes, there is a way, because we think with that I maximized what I had. And my belief and faith was that strong that I was going to get that. I didn't even think about, oh my God, I'll be disappointed. No, it wasn't happening. People would say, because in our teachings we say this or something better. I'm like, no, I don't want something better. I want this. I want this. And so that's just an example, and it's just one example of what we create in our lives. If we learn to work with what we have, more will be given unto us. It's one of the greatest laws, it really is. The world constantly monitors our actions to see how we use the resources we have been given to oversee. If we are good stewards and consistently use what we have to the maximum, more and more will be added unto us. And they come from many different channels. I stepped out into the unknown 13 years ago, and 12 years ago, and the universe filled in all those details. Every detail. If I didn't believe this stuff, which can sound, oh yeah, right, I proved it to myself, because the universe provided every single step that wasn't there before. Now, you can't plan that which is not there before. To the rational mind, of which I have been blessed not to have, all things are possible. Basic universal law applies. Form follows thought. Like attracts like. If you focus your attention on what you have, and we have so much more than what we realize we have, your consciousness attracts more. It's the way it works. If you focus on what you lack, then you keep attracting more of that lack. Positive or negative, whatever you emphasize in consciousness always expands. It always gets bigger. So if we're focused on lack most of our lives, well, then it's just going to continue and get bigger. You cannot circumvent that principle. It works with mathematical precision. If you focus on lack 98% of the time by worrying and fretting, then try to correct that whole feeling of lack with a couple of meaningless affirmations. It's just not going to work. You're still going to attract, because that feeling state of lack is what will prevail, and we will attract more lack into our lives. So we reap accordingly to what we believe and what we feel. Focus, not good or bad. Focus one-pointedly on what you have and see it as perfect. Be grateful for each and everything that you have. Use the resources that you have at hand carefully, making every possible bit of use of them. And make sure you are seeing everything you have with gratitude and using it to the maximum. Look at your talent, your help, your knowledge, and your other intangible resources. They are every bit as important as the physical supply. Have you ever maximized any of these profound gifts that we have within us? If it is more financial resources that you desire, acknowledge and use wisely what you have. More health? Acknowledge and be grateful for the parts in your body that are so healthy. Focus on that, not what's wrong with the body, but on all the good. The fact that I'm up here standing and moving my arms is a miracle. Focus on what works, not what doesn't work. Take care of what doesn't work, I'm not saying that, but focus on what works. A new home. Love and bless and treat exactly where you are living right now, even if it's in a car, even if it's in the bedroom of your friend's house. Whatever it is, be grateful for it right then and there. Do this cheerfully, gratefully, and as consistently as possible. When you can do this 10% of the time, you will reap 10% of that reality. That healing will occur. And when you can do this 100% or close to it of the time, you will have entered the dimension of the miraculous. You will have entered heaven. Heaven right here on earth, because that's where heaven is. And that's hell's here too. You get to choose. It's the continental divide. What am I choosing? What am I choosing? Because that's what you're manifesting. So we now have the 4 first conditions of a miracle. Emptiness, alignment, asking, which is setting the universe on notice of our desire through our words and feelings to call the law, the spiritual law, into action, and maximizing, choosing to use what we have in a wise and a grateful manner. And so, my friends, those are the 4 of the 12. We're going to continue, though, till we get to the whole 12, so we can operate on all 12 cylinders, because that's what I want to do, operate on all 12 cylinders. So have a clear desire in your mind of what it is you truly want to feel by your desire, your goal, what it is that you would like in life. And then with that attitude of gratitude, be grateful that it is already taking place. The faith is so important. Be so grateful it's already taking place, because gratitude is one of the highest vibrations and frequencies that exist. So I encourage all of us to be grateful for what we have and expect more. You deserve more. If you were taught you don't deserve all that good, cancel that out of your life. You deserve all the good that you can possibly hold in your heart, in your being. And so it is.